Hello Internet, my name is Andrew Eder and welcome to another episode of Film Editorials. The topic of today's video is not a movie about a team of superheroes fighting amongst itself, finally. It is instead about a movie called Me Before You, which is a drama, a romance film, some would even go so far as to call it a chick flick. Me Before You tells the story of a 27-year-old woman in a small town who's kind of down on her luck, and she is hired to take care of a disabled person. It turns out this disabled person is rich and handsome and funny, but has a chip on his shoulder from being disabled, so their relationship is rocky, and then things change and hijinks ensue and all sorts of stuff happens. Remember, here on this channel I try to be spoiler-free, so I'm trying not to give anything away, but honestly you can probably tell what's going to happen in this movie by looking at, I don't know, the poster. This movie is based off of a book with the same title, which I didn't know existed until the movie came out, but apparently it was wildly popular, so if you've read the book, you also know what's going to happen in this movie. The big draw I feel with this film is the cast, because you're probably going to recognize at least 50% of the actors in this movie from other things. Obviously, Emilia Clarke is the main character, playing a woman whose last name is Clarke, funnily enough, and you're going to recognize her from Game of Thrones, because she's Daenerys Targaryen. And Sam Claflin, I think I'm saying that incorrectly, is the male lead, and you'll recognize him from the Hunger Games movie. He was Finnick, the guy with like the trident. Jenna Coleman, who was until recently the companion on Doctor Who, is also in this movie, as is the guy who plays Tywin Lannister, and the guy who played Neville Longbottom in the Harry Potter franchise. Now the plot of this movie is fairly straightforward, and by fairly straightforward I mean basically entirely predictable. I knew what was going to happen as soon as they reveal like the big problem, the big hurdle that they have to cross. Since this movie is a drama and a romance film and, you know, a chick flick, it's trying really hard to make you feel things, specifically sadness, and it's trying so hard that you can see it coming from a mile away. Or at least I could. There are only two possible outcomes once they introduce the hurdle, and so you have like a 50-50 shot of getting it right, and if you just kind of think about what the expectations are from this movie and what was going to make you cry more, go with the one that's going to make you cry more. That's the safer bet. So the fact that it lives up to its genre expectations is not enough for me to condemn this movie, because it kind of feels like a popcorn movie for your emotions. Like, you go in there expecting all these things, and it's, you know, sappy and emotional and predictable, but that's kind of what you want from that kind of a movie. But I feel like it's surprising because they got such big names in it, and that's what separates this movie from, say, something on the Hallmark Channel. My bigger issue with this movie, and what I think is actually probably a bigger problem, so to speak, with this film, is that the filmmakers seem to not want to commit fully to the issues they bring up. The big hurdle in the middle of the film, the big thing that drives all the conflict and basically the emotions and what drives our characters to do the things that they end up doing, is a pretty serious issue, and one that is subtle and subject to debate and could be an interesting discussion, and instead they just kind of give you a half answer, just like, oh, this is what he's gonna do, so that's what he's gonna do, instead of talking about like the merits of doing it his way or doing it her way. Similarly, Neville's character in this movie is set up to be so simple. He's clearly the bad guy. You could have a complicated, nuanced love triangle where she's trying to balance her emotions between, you know, the able-bodied person who's, you know, fairly small-minded but capable of doing things and capable of growing emotionally, or the person who has grown emotionally but physically can't do anything. That would be interesting and nuanced, but instead it's, here's a really good guy who happens to be in a wheelchair, and here's a douchebag who happens to be able to run. I also had rather a hard time buying the character that Daenerys is supposed to be playing in this movie. She's supposed to be down on her luck and quirky and chatty and borderline weird, but it comes off as her trying too hard. Like, Emilia Clarke is trying too hard to be this weird offbeat character. And weirdly, it reminded me of movies with like a body swap kind of situation, like Big or 13 Going on 30, where this immature character is in the body of a much more mature person. And that's what I felt watching the first half of this movie with Emilia Clarke. I don't know if I was supposed to feel that way, because her character changes over the course of the film and becomes more mature. If we're supposed to feel like that is what makes her her, then we shouldn't be rooting for her transformation, but when she was transforming, it was presented as a good thing. And then she talks about how she's changed at the end of the movie, and like, that's really cool. So I don't know if we're supposed to be glad that she's become this not quite so immature person. I don't know. Okay, so I'm gonna have to give Me Before You 3 stars out of 5. It's a popcorn movie targeted at your heart and your emotions. The cast list is really impressive and the performances are generally very good. But on the other hand, it's really predictable. It doesn't seem to fully commit to all the big issues and questions it raises. And I have some problems with Daenerys' maturity level at different points in the movie. I went into this movie basically expecting all the stuff I just talked about, so I wasn't blown away at all. It lived up to all of my expectations and basically didn't exceed anything. And if you expect all of those things yourself, you're probably going to enjoy this well enough to, have a good time for 2 hours. If you go into this film expecting the next great piece of cinema, then you're going to be disappointed, and I'm just going to tell you now, don't set your expectations that high. So that's going to be it for today's video. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to like, favorite, share this video with all of your friends, and follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Snapchat. Also, please be sure to check out my friends at The Good News Review, tgnreview.com. They also have an app for your iPhone. The folks over there find and write really interesting news stories that are about positive things in the world, not the doom and gloom that you're used to hearing on television. Okay, I will see you guys next time. Bye!